Tantalizing wordplay, yeah, that's the joint. Sometimes I have to cuss just to prove my damn point.
What's that, man?
Brothers need to come
Good.
Yeah, we did it. Okay, finally.
And
Hang on, let me clean this up.
and this rap game here, we engineered, stabbing up the...
You got the hoodie on. I'm about to go get a suntan by the pool.
Oh no. I don't want to talk about the weather here.
It's so nasty. Let me set up this video recording here and... Okay.
What are you doing for video recording? How do you do that?
I don't know. I'm trying this program called Snagit, and it doesn't. It looks like it just shut down. That's hilarious. I know it's recording. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Systems on. Perfect. Sweet. Sweet. Okay. Awesome. I think it's actually recording. That's crazy. Dude, are you back in the Lutheran coffee shop?
Yeah.
Yeah, same old place. If you hit that up, then that's your spot?
I like to switch it up. That's huge, switching it up, I feel like. I like to, get some different vibes going. Here at the library and the coffee shops, though, yeah. It's kind of my office.
It's kind of funny,
office.
Nothing wrong with that. I've known people that do the enclosed storage units as a business office, because they'll be they'll be climate controlled, and so it's really nice and cheap. Dude, I mean, you just need a place, right? You got a spot, and that's all that matters. And nice and cheap. Hey, so we were talking that first time. It's so crazy, and sorry about losing all that audio. I've got my side of the conversation, but for some reason, when I'm recording on this side, it lost it, and it is a major fuck up, but whatever, so it goes. And it was still a good conversation, but I think we started out, or I don't know if we started out like this, but I summed it up like this, and you said this on Twitter too. Futurism, singularity, psychedelics, the usual, and that is kind of the usual. It's kind of funny. For me, and the way I think, that's always on my mind. In every conversation I have with somebody, in some way that plays a role. For instance, yesterday, the whole just healthcare, whatever, bullshit just came up, and a couple different conversations, and the more and more I started thinking about it, and I was reading some articles, I'm going, there's this enormous sector of our economy, 20-30%, I'm not sure the exact size, and it's huge, billions and billions and billions of dollars. The government's involved, these mega corporations, huge bureaucracies, rules and regulations. And so, this is all for health, right? To make us healthier human beings, supposedly, or to keep us alive longer, supposedly. But the one thing it seems like none of those people ever look at or consider is this kind of secret, quiet trend of medical technology just getting crazier and crazier and crazier, whether it's a bionic eye to bionic blood to nanotechnology in medicine, and how not only is that getting exponentially better, year to year, every 18-ish months, it's also getting cheaper and cheaper, exponentially cheaper. And testing, running your genetic profile test, it's $100 on 23andMe now. And I think that started out in the millions, not just 10 plus years ago, 20 years ago. So whenever they first tried to sequence it. So it's this is all happening, but we've got this mega crazy, fucked up, just hybrid nightmare healthcare sector of our economy that's literally has the potential to be replaced almost overnight in big time perspective. Technology just blasts it out of the fucking water, and these people don't even know what happened. You know, they're worrying about insurance claims, whether you have insurance or not, and then all of a sudden someone just goes and buys a fucking bionic eye on Amazon.com, overnights it, and just shoves it into their fucking skull somehow, and it's got an eye and it works. And I just, it seems so crazy. Does that make any sense at all? Like, it's a little disjointed, but
No, yeah, totally. Like, going back to what you were first saying, how, like, you know, like, singularity and things, like, they're always on your mind, and no matter what conversation you're having, it's kind of like, it plays a part into, like, where you go with it. And, like, I feel the exact same way. And, like, it was funny, you know, like, oh, like, that's the usual, you know, like, those things is kind of funny to me, like, Singularity 2045, psychedelics, McKenna, blah, 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 but it's like, if that's what, I was just thinking, like, if that's what I am thinking about, I totally need to be having, like, more conversations with people like you, like, people just connecting with people that are just thinking about these things. And, like, as far as, like, us utilizing technology, like, I just look at, in that instance, it's like, I haven't been using technology well. Like, I'm stuck here in Winona, Minnesota, and I kind of complain about, you know, not having people to talk to. And it's like, that's bullshit. I can just connect to people on the internet that feel that, or that are like thinking about this shit, talking about this stuff. So it's like we haven't, like, things have changed so much that we haven't even utilized what we have now, you know, which is like the crazy part. And it's like you said, growing exponentially and so hard to keep up with. But yeah, it needs to be known. And, like, I always try to, like, poke at people's plans for the future, like, oh, when I'm 90 and super old, it's like, well, like, yeah, like, it might not be the way, like, you see 9-year-olds now, like, you know, like, people, like, this is going to affect, obviously, everybody, and they don't even know it's coming, but, I don't know, it's like, just, like, one other thing with that is Kurzweil, he talks about, like, he was at MIT, like, an MIT board meeting, and, like, the former president was, like, laying out his 20-year plans for the campus, and it was, like, all architecture. It was, like, that was, like, the big part. It's, like, physical spaces are becoming obsolete, and, like, you're only thinking about the architecture here. Like, in 20 years, like, I mean, we're talking, like, ridiculously obsolete. Like, we're going to be feeling like we're in the same room as people, you know? Like, so, yeah.
Yeah, that's that transformation. That's kind of insane. How enormously fast. Like, but it's weird because I don't remember if we talked about this last time, but how the technology gap between people who get it and understand it and then are actually, like, positive and okay about it, and those who don't get it and those who are scared of it. I mean, it's getting bigger and bigger, like, every day, every year, and eventually that gap's, I mean, it's almost, it's going to be something that divides people so greatly, like, so greatly, those who actually engage with the technology and those who don't. And I think that that's where the potential dystopia happens. Because all you have to do is, like, take a couple of these narratives of the singularity and repurpose them into some sort of, like, apocalyptic, Armageddon, religious connotation, and you could have 1 million people out of 6 billion who are absolutely convinced and ready to, like, do anything to stop it. I'm kind of thinking about that because I've been watching Battlestar Galactica to get my total singularity credentials in order. And that's one of the, you know, storylines between the artificial life forms created by the humans and whether or not these two could ever coexist. And a lot of humans couldn't accept that, you know, in the story. But I think that's for real. I mean, I think there's plenty of humans right now that are not ready to accept it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I see it in ways for sure, but, like, it happens so slowly and people do adopt it eventually, you know? It's like, I just think a lot. Like when I think about singularity, I think about how it's already happening. Like our iPhones and stuff. Like we are gods already. Like it's insane what we're doing right now. And like people obviously have smartphones. You know, like they're even though you know they may hate on social media or Snapchat or like whatever. They still are going to adopt it, and if something like they're on their deathbed, I mean, it's a different story when you're faced with it. Like I think people will adopt it. I think they will want to live forever. Like, and what I say to people actually is like, oh, I don't want to live forever. It's like, well, okay, at least agree to like just turn off, take like a 5-year. 100-year nap if you want to, and like come back. Like it's not just gonna be like, you know, like you'll be committing suicide, really. And it's like I don't know. I don't see a lot of people doing that, and just like the slow, how it just plays out slowly. Well, it's like happening super fast, but it's still happening fairly slowly, like
incrementally.
Yeah, like it's not going to be like next year we're going to be like, all right, we're living forever, who's down type of thing, you know.
But someone
who it's really interesting.
But someone who's not paying attention to any of it, like there's just a lot of people who they don't pay attention to anything going on around them, whether it's societal or technology. They might be into one thing, and that could be their TV show. Or, you know, like they're just totally zoned out to reality. They go to their 9 to 5, check in, check out, come home. I think there's a lot of people like that. And I think those are people who are going to get overwhelmed and have a hard time integrating it. Because those people will be 60 plus, you know, like way older. So I'm not talking about necessarily younger people, but it's people who are already primed, like right now, to be kind of a Luddite and be anti-technology. And there's a lot of people who live in the middle of nowhere and don't want to have anything to do with it. I don't know, like, how many. But yeah, maybe it'll still infect them, you know, like the benefits will be too great. But it's funny because in a certain way, the NSA thing for certain people is almost a confirmation of their anti-technology views. And so that feeds certain people. You know, I don't agree with that, but I think a lot of people do. And so they're just very cynical about it all.
Yeah, totally. It's like that is. It shows like the negative possibilities for sure, but I mean, I don't know. That's just what it is. Just a possibility. We get to decide where we go with it. But yeah, no, it's true. It's like it's like people confirm their fear of the future with the most ridiculous things without actually being open-minded about what's going on. And like, for instance, like Kurzweil's like work and stuff like that. Like people look at it like, just talk to people like, yeah, you know, like Kurzweil has some like pretty empirical evidence for, you know, us being able to live forever and basic like blah blah blah, and they're like, oh no, like maybe 110 or like maybe 120, like people without having any idea who Kurzweil is, what his work is. And it's just a shame really that he is so like under the radar, and his work is so under the radar. But no, yeah, it's just funny, like people just they make judgments about the future based on the past, really, and like what's happened, and they're not really super open-minded to technology and whatever. But yeah,
that's interesting. Man, I don't know. Yeah, I think that the positive definitely seems to outweigh the negative, no doubt. I'm just saying, like, it's clashes of consciousness, you know. So as people start waking up to one thing, certain people who think they had it all together, like they they know what's going on. Now when this new consciousness awakens to, to be an alternative way of thinking or perceiving, there tends to be conflict, and that's an issue. And so, like, government included, like, I think the progress of technology is also coinciding with the inevitable ending of anything called government, and because government's such an old, worn-out technology that's proven itself historically to not solve the problems it's intended to solve with humans, whereas, like, utilizing a lot of this new technology, especially just having these one-on-one human interactions more frequently with people outside of our normal stereotype group, that helps increase peace and understanding. And it's like, if everyone acts in peace between one another, the reasons for a state don't really make any sense at a certain point. Once you get to a certain point of consciousness change. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I'd be interested to hear, like, what your thoughts are as far as, like, when we get to not needing, like, some sort of civic structure. Because, like, I've kind of been debating that too. Like, when don't we need, like, a civic structure, and how will that look, kind of? Because there's a startup that's actually not a startup. They started, like, 1999. It's called Granicus. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
Granicus? So it's really interesting. It's like connecting citizens to government with kind of like crowdsourcing things, such as, like, citizens have, like, a forum to discuss, like, civic matters, and then they get to, like, vote on decisions that policymakers are making. And there's, like, so for instance, in Sacramento and San Francisco, you can, like, go back and watch 10 years of city hall meetings or whatever. So, like, they're big on, like, recording stuff and just documenting everything, like, and collaborative and stuff like that, which is obviously, like, a huge step forward. And, like, politicians will say, at least on the outside, that they're for transparency. But, like, just, like, technology and, like, stuff like that, it really puts them on the spot, Like, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, and that holds them accountable. Look what happens when you have everyday citizens all over America trying to hold, like, say, police or law enforcement accountable for their actions as public, servants with their video cameras, and you've seen police, physically abuse people over that and arrest people, and you've had people get their getting stormed by cops, with a warrant raiding their house to take their computers because they had uploaded a video of them recording cops, or like this one. So it's like, there's always, like I said, that's that conflict. So, like, the technology allows now, a regular human being to hold a public person accountable now, like a governmental official, and whereas before that didn't exist. That was the whole thing with Rodney King. That was the first time that really came into existence, because that police car had video recording, 24/7 from the car. And so the obvious next step is making every cop wear some sort of just HD video camera somewhere, like Google Glass style.
Google Glass, for sure.
Yeah, and they've got to record it, and that has to be accessible to everyone in the public. And if you don't, as a cop or as a law enforcement, want that type of accountability, then you shouldn't be law enforcement. Because law enforcement needs to gain the trust of the community they serve, not vice versa. And so, by being able to be that kind of person who's saying, you know what, I'm willing to be accountable to my duty, to uphold law and do it with justice. That's like a Superman, a Superwoman. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the ultimate. And who wouldn't respect that person then? And they say, I'm not going to go arrest people for altering their consciousness with a plant and throw them in a cage. I don't support that either. Like, these are the kind of, like, cops that everyone can respect, that neighborhoods can respect, that people can hold up again, as kind of like a hero community. But unfortunately, they're just tied into the same authoritarian power structure as current government is. And so that's why you have, like, I just tweeted this out the other day about Fargo, North Dakota, which I think didn't you go to school in one of the Dakotas?
Yeah, I went in South Dakota. Yeah.
Okay, South Dakota.
So I'm from there. Yeah.
Have you ever been to Fargo?
Yeah.
It's anything going on?
Yeah. Well, as far as Dakotas go, and like that's not a knock on the Dakotas. Like, there's stuff going on, and like there's like there'd actually be chill places to go and live in the Dakotas where it's just like super isolated, and it's kind of interesting. But so like I don't knock on the Dakotas too much. But people gotta get out of there sometimes for sure because it's so isolated. But no, like in Fargo, there's actually like kind of a little downtown and like artsy scene and stuff. And then it's like the biggest like college and city, I think, in the Dakotas.
Well, with the article was talking about Fargo Police Department spent $250,000 to get like this armored military vehicle, purchased from the military, I think decommissioned, from war use, with an actual 360-degree turning, spinning gun turret on top of it. And you know how many murders there have been in Fargo over the past 10 years? It averages like 2 per year. 2 per year. So it's like, we had this really weird thing happening in one perspective, and technology's letting us see this because I can read this article, then I can tweet it to people, I can text it to people, we can talk about it, and so now this is showing what's happening, but there's a definite diversion, it seems like, with people wanting to hold on hard to that power they've gained through the system. They've played that system really good, and I think a lot of the older people are seeing it like just get ripped from their hands, whether it's a John McCain type politician or it's just they don't get it. They don't get what's happening, and I know this for a fact, by the way, because when I worked in Capitol Hill, I knew Congress people who could not even use. They didn't have computers in their office because they didn't even know how to use them. They refused to wear BlackBerries because they didn't even know. And these are the same people voting tech legislation, whether it's SOPA or CISPA, and which CISPA's popping back up now too. So, it's like when I look at the evidence, and like McKenna has this great line about how we are led by the least among us in society. The political class of any society is almost guaranteed to be the least among you, especially when there's not some sort of check on their ego. There's some ritualistic psychedelic use, like in a shamanic type, culture or society, where it's more, I don't even say egalitarian or just respecting of individual autonomy a little more. And then like these people get so fucking out of control. Like, can you imagine what Obama would feel like if he took like 3-4 grams of mushrooms? And then after that trip, like, didn't you think that he would at least be able to see some of the shit a little more clearly? And ego getting checked. And every politician, like a rite of passage. And but if you say that kind of stuff, even if you can back it up with scientific evidence, which there's plenty of, especially with the ego diminishing qualities, you're automatically dismissed. You're automatically dismissed, and it's crazy. And because people don't even want to consider that as an option. It's fascinating to me. I don't know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Going back to like the transparency and stuff, I wanted to know, have you heard of like the participatory panopticon idea?
Yeah.
That's like a big old little name there, but like, so a panopticon is like this building that was built like in like 1700s or 1800s or something, or designed. And so like basically It was like a circular building, and from the middle you could see into every single room in the building. So it was like designed for like prisons and schools and like whatever, like things where you want to be able to see everybody, and, like take away privacy essentially.
Yeah.
And so I heard this futurist talking about, and I'll send you a YouTube after this because he goes in on it. But he talks about how like Google Glass is like shows us a tiny little baby step of like what will happen with like the world becoming like a panopticon, like so us totally like privacy just being completely eliminated essentially. So like for instance with Google Glass, at a certain point when it like gets really good and you can record 24/7, if you don't record 24/7, you'll just be behind, right? Like it'll just be so great to just record your whole life. Like it'll be unbelievable. And then we'll have like the internet of everything with like computers like everywhere, and data like coming from everywhere. Like you won't be able to hide anything. And so it's just like really interesting, just like thinking of yourself and thinking of like, okay, well, like there's just no like white lies or any games you can play with like people that you know or anything. Like everything is upfront, everything is public, and like that world will completely change. So I mean, so many things. It's kind of insane, but I mean, yeah, it's like already happening now, right? With like Facebook and Twitter and all of that stuff to a degree, but just as it increases, it's just gonna completely obliterate privacy. And so as far as government, as far as all of that stuff, like there's some implications there. But yeah, you wonder like, okay, how are they gonna try to keep control now?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
How are they gonna try? Yeah. But it's good. Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's almost good that they aren't into tech. In a way, like like there's the NSA and stuff like that kind of controls it and stuff. But as far as people who are innovating and people who are on top of it, like they're not in the government so much.
Yeah, for sure. And there's two other real important aspects for why that's the case. Is one, like an enormous bureaucracy, like the government in the first place, they can only react to what's being innovated. So whatever is happening in technology has already happened, and then government's trying to react. Like it's too decentralized, it's too fast, it's too innovative, it's too spontaneous. It can come from people in their garages, like working on shit, writing code, and so they can't ever be on the front. And then on top of that, as long as there's more or less a free market and technology innovation in general, that will always produce like the better, faster, most amazing entrepreneurial innovations. And so there could certainly be things here or there that like a DARPA is going to create because they're blasting billions and billions of dollars at it, but it's not necessarily efficient. So if you're just looking at the per dollar basis, people just pursuing things out of their own, just you go, I want to live forever. So if you want to live forever and you have resources or access to resources, you're going to put a lot to make that happen. Like if that's your thing, and that's what you're living to do is to live forever, you're going to be a pretty vocal supporter, a proponent to help make that happen. So whereas bureaucracies they don't fucking work like that. Like it just doesn't work like that at all.
No, and it's just like what we started with. Like the general public doesn't care, or it's not that they don't care. Maybe a mixture of they don't care and they're not like aware of Kurzweil technology trends and such. It's like the general population is not going to like say, hey, let's live forever, if like people, most people don't consider that like a possibility. It's only like small groups of people who are going are going to do something.
And when you're thinking about the giant bureaucracy or big groups of people, they, when the government's trying to pursue something, they tend to, it's always like these grand plan designed ideas as if there's someone in that bureaucratic group that has a vision of the future. And they know where it's going to go. So we're going to go, take over a part of the economy, or we're going to extract these resources from these people or these places, and we're going to put it into this one, pre-planned, centralized idea. And it's not even going to be finished for the next 15 fucking years. And then once it's finished, guess what? It's like the train system in LA. No one fucking uses it because it doesn't go where anyone wants it to go. Because it wasn't responding to just decentralized market demand. And so now you have that what's it called? The HyperX, the Elon Musk transportation system that he proposed, open sourced, for California.
Okay.
You hadn't seen that?
No, I haven't seen it. I'll have to check that out.
Let me see if that's what it's called. What did I say? HyperX? Let's see how little I remember. Yeah, see, that's not it. Let's see, hang on. Not Musk. Yeah, because in California they're trying to do Hyperloop. Okay, I got one word right. Yeah, so if you look up Hyperloop, you'll see it. And so he basically created this system. Long story short, okay, California's trying to do high-speed rail between, LA, San Francisco, just the major cities. And this has been in people's minds for a long fucking time. And for a lot of people, or a small group of people, they believe in this idealistic, almost kind of sentimental view of trains. And then high-speed train is just the next level on it. It's kind of like the monorail idea. Some people just think it's the most amazing thing ever, so we need to make sure government does this. Whether or not anyone else wants it or is going to use it, we just got to do high-speed rail. So they voted on all these tax or bond measures in California to help fund it. And I think they're looking at cost of California high-speed rail. I think it's like $90 billion is what they're looking right now. $70 billion. And it's just increasing every year as they keep delaying it. And the high-speed train is only going to run 90 miles per hour, which in Japan, I think the maglev trains run 200 plus miles per hour. They're totally fucking insane. And so it's barely high speed. It's really weak technology. It's just slow and expensive. So then Elon Musk just comes up and says, hey, guess what? We're going to open source design. I'm not even going to own it. I'm just going to let anyone use it. It's called the Hyperloop. And it's this pneumatic tube setup. When you go to the bank, you put your money, it goes through the tubes. That's the easiest way to think of it. And so you'd be in a transportation pod inside that kind of above ground tube system. Yep. And it swings you in this loop like LA to San Francisco. And apparently the cost estimates, they're saying that it would go 600 miles per hour, so epically faster than this high-speed rail train, and you could go from LA to San Francisco in 35 minutes. That's 354 miles. So, and it would only cost I don't know, it's saying for the passenger, $6 or $7 billion compared to $70 billion. And it's taking advantage of new tech. It's taking advantage of, open source design. It's taking advantage of all these really cool shit to make something better, faster, more awesome, and cheaper. And guess what? You don't have to rape taxpayers either. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I've seen stuff like that. Is that technology available right now?
Yeah, there's let's see here. I'm just on the wiki page for it, but I've read a couple articles about it. I'm sure that most of it, I guess I'm not sure what stage of the design it's at, but yeah, I think it's something that's actually legit that could go, but I guess there's more research to be done. I don't know. But the point is here's something new and innovative. You know, like, really? Like, I read this article about, it's the cover story in Wired, this current issue, about this girl on the Mexican side of the border, which is real close to us, you know, here in San Antonio, and a lot of my wife's family is right there in that same area across the border as well. So I'm like, I know this particularly, and there's a teacher who one day just decided in Mexico his school is like literally on top of a giant garbage dump, and you smell trash, all rotten trash, all day at school. You know, the test scores are miserable. And here's this guy, he's like 30 years old, and he starts thinking like, there's got to be a better way to educate these students and these kids than the top-down proposed way that the government's telling we have to educate them. And so he starts reading and researching and going to this like voluntary learning style where kids essentially learn on their own. Like, you never force the kid to learn, and you never really even teach the kid. You're just there to kind of like monitor what's going on. And what you find is that the kids can self-learn and then teach each other like almost infinitely faster than an instructor can do it for everybody. And so more or less he like open sourced this classroom to a bunch of cool, innovative education concepts, which actually go back hundreds of years, actually, to like the 1800s, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Before, guess what? Government got into education. Like, fuck all this shit about like everybody needs like a government public school education. It's bullshit because it's based on dumbed down education standards at the turn of the century for the Industrial Revolution. So the idea is like, we got to take a bunch of people who are uneducated and can't read, and we need to teach them how to be submissive, how to be supple, how to do what they're told, show up somewhere on time, and move some widgets around. And this is literal. Like, these are like, I'm paraphrasing the conversations, but when you go read the actual conversations of the people involved in setting up the education system around 1900, which is more or less what we're still running on now, that's it. That's all it was for. And it's like in writing. Because before that, you had all these, so many different ways of learning and education. I'm getting off the rails. And this girl, in this classroom, this is in Mexico, you know, like, they don't even have, it said, one computer for the whole school. So to teach computers to the class, they hold up, like, placards of, like, a keyboard and say, this is a keyboard, and if you type in it, it'll show up on this screen. You know, it's another placard of a monitor. They can fucking show them a real computer. And so that's how poor and behind it is on tech. Well, over the course of this year, one girl in the classroom ended up scoring the highest math score in all of Mexico. And then 5 other students in this classroom scored in the 99 percentile because they only missed one question. And it's like unheard of in a statistical sense. Only like 1 or 2 students failed anything on any of the tests, which again is like phenomenal.
So rad.
So the teacher then, though, they're interviewing Wired, I don't know, Wired, or they're reporting someone interviewing one of the regional education union, you know, just bureaucrats in Mexico. And he just absolutely offhand dismissed it. He just said that, you know, the way they have things is the way it, you know, works, and that's it. You know, and it was like, it was really just that open and shut for him. And he wasn't interested in considering this new idea. So that's just a product of bureaucracies. Then on top of that, that's a product of a bureaucracy that has a monopoly on force. And that force can fucking shut you down if it really wants to shut you down in a certain context. So that's how crazy it gets. So that's why you have this hyperloop, innovative. And then, you know, like, people always talk about, oh, if there's no government, Then how could there be roads? Who's gonna build the roads, you know? Well, let's think about it. Who's gonna build the fucking roads, you know? Who would want roads, and then who would build the roads? I don't think it takes a lot of imagination to consider some possibilities. But then when you look at how our interstate system's designed and built, and then cars, if you really think about cars, how much have cars changed? We don't have fucking flying cars. We don't have anything like, hardly that you would call like advanced year 2000, you know, computer-like car technology. We have the self-driving cars coming up, but I just almost wonder, without all this additional regulation and bureaucracy from government on transportation, if there hadn't been everybody with fucking jetpacks right now flying all over the place.
Seriously, yeah, totally.
So that's just where it's like these things in economics, people talking about, and Bastiat was really good on this, talking about that which is unseen, and or also the opportunity cost, or also the unintended consequences. And so when you confiscate a huge amount of resources and taxation to use for a government project, if that doesn't work out in the most perfect of senses and possibilities, you've literally destroyed a very positive use potential from those resources in the hands of a entrepreneurial creator or innovator. So that's where you get into the unintended consequences. And no one wants to ever admit that kind of stuff. And they go like, what about the roads? I'm like, what about the billions and trillions of dollars we spent blowing fucking people up all over the world? What about that money? What if that money wasn't stolen from people who worked really fucking hard for it, and they were able to invest it in the things they felt like investing in it? Like maybe their community, themselves, their families, so on and so forth. Not fucking drones blowing up little kids, you know, all over the world. And that was the new report. I know I'm going off these the drones and that shit drives me crazy, man.
And on that note, I need to go get the coffee refill really quick.
Yeah, go get it.
Okay.
While he's getting coffee, it's crazy. The drones, they had there's this kind of show. Yesterday, I think it was the ACLU and some other human rights organization came out with a report where they were studying a couple of the major drone strikes, trying to identify how many innocents were killed, and women and children, and it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot, and so it's just kind of confirming what everyone thought. I mean, some people have thrown out the number that 90% of the drone strike casualties are unintended innocent civilians, but this report didn't really focus on that because it was focused on just a handful of targeted attacks on places. But I know it's like one of the reports was talking about blowing up a gathering where, it's like they were hosting another family here. Well, there also happened to be this terrorist target they're trying to kill, but we're not worried about this totally innocent family that's here hosted. And one of the outcomes of one of the drone attacks were, I think it was 5 women who were pregnant and 21 children. And it's totally insane. Like, it's totally insane that this keeps happening, and it's barely in our consciousness. And those of us who talk about it, it's hard to get sympathy. I'm not trying to get sympathy, but it's hard to see sympathy in other people when you have, 12-year-old, 8-year-old children talking about the nightmares they have because they think they're going to get blown up just like their grandparents did or some neighbor did. And so that's why when you hear Obama talk trying to promote the Syrian war or attacking Syria, and he's talking about the innocent victims of the gas attacks, Neil deGrasse Tyson pointed out that, a bomb is also a chemical weapon. There's a chemical reaction that takes place. And so our drone missiles the U.S. government's drone missiles, those are chemical weapons too, and they've killed women and children. And to sit there and say that with a straight face, with no sense of irony, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but it's really strange and it's really weird to watch that happen. And that's keeping in mind when he had, I think it was like the press gathering where he joked about using drone strikes Obama was talking about these drone strikes. I was going off on a little rant while you were gone, about using a drone to blow up someone trying to date his daughter. And, he's making this joke and it's like, haha, funny, except that lots of the drone strikes you've authorized have actually killed innocent women and children. And just the idea that you're supposed to be the leader of the free world and, someone who everyone thought could have some sort of a little more compassionate view or humanity-based view, and it's just not, it's almost non-existent. It's almost like, I don't believe in this in any shape or form, but, getting possessed by something that just raped his soul, and that could simply just be that position of power and all the lobbying and all the other people he has to deal with day to day. But it's totally insane, and that's that drones. So, fuck all that shit. And the drones now, the new technology is to make them autonomous. So the drones themselves will decide whether or not, to fire, to attack, or not. You ready for that?
Which, as far as war goes, that's probably a good thing if they could distinguish like civilians from an enemy. But that's like, I don't know, making war more efficient isn't really like super exciting.
Yeah, like have you ever talked to somebody and where their major defense for war is all the technology we get from defense research? What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? So we're literally just gonna sacrifice the lives of millions of people who are gonna die in the wars at the altar of really cool weaponry and really cool technology that came out of that war. Like, it's totally insane. Because that's the way you have to look at war. Like, whatever someone says, like it was good, and then because we got this end result, you have to actually literally take in your head an imaginative pile of every single dead human body. You have to synthesize and comprehend in a conscious way that each one of those were living human entities, thinking, loving, caring, and they're literally being sacrificed as an offering to whatever this goal was that this fucker wanted or thinks is a great idea. And no one thinks about it like that, but that's exactly what it is.
No, that's completely ridiculous to think about. Like, we'll find anything to defend our most bullshit stuff. Like, that war being like this ridiculously extreme example. Like, yeah, well, we're killing millions of people, but we have some technology developments, because of it, and blah, blah, blah. Like, I have the same conversation with people about football. So, like, I played in college, and like I had a scholarship, and when I say like, oh well, I don't think that this is necessarily the right path for society to be taking, with us dumping all this money into scholarships for athletes for like $1 billion industry for NFL, blah, blah, blah. When I say stuff like that, they're like, oh, well, you're so unappreciative of the opportunity that football gave you, And it's like, yeah, well, okay, I got awesome friends from it. I had awesome experiences from it. Like, I grew up, like, all of these things. But, like, you get those from going to a war, too. Like, you get friendships, you get life experiences, like, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's good, It's like, people will defend the most ridiculous things. And, like, so, like, football and war are, like, kind of disparately associated, but it's just interesting what people be like, oh, well, but this, like, oh, we're killing just millions of people, but we're getting technology. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know, crazy.
It is like that. Yeah, it's totally insane. It's totally insane, and it's kind of funny too when you talk about like college sports. One thing that people don't consider obviously is that the athletes themselves couldn't be. Honestly, they're indentured servants to a certain extent, considering the millions and millions of dollars banked, by the universities off the actual athletes themselves. Whereas if it were a real marketplace, those athletes would be making bank, like serious money. And I've always had a problem with that too, because this is a non-profit university, it's education. I mean, it's all bullshit. It's in name only for a lot of people. I mean, they'll support a university. They don't even know anything about it as a academic institution or a research institution. I'm not really trying to hate. I'm just saying that their only reason to like a university will just be that sport. And, I don't know, just make it a semi-professional football team then, or football league, or pay the fucking athletes. But on top of that, that whole system, it's funded, the public universities tend to have the biggest programs and the biggest stadiums and all that. So then once again, you're coming back to a more centralized state, where the state has a lot of influence and sway on that as well. Well, they're just building a new fucking stadium, and the millions of dollars that costs. And one way or another, that's funded through the state, or subsidized by the state, which is subsidized by the taxpayers. And that does seem kind of strange.
Oh no, it's so strange. One of my high school religion teachers. So I went to like Catholic school throughout my whole life.
Oh, did you really? Wow.
Yeah. I was like, it was hardcore stuff going on. Not super hardcore, I guess, but still pretty hardcore. So one of my high school religion teachers was like, if some beings would come like 500 years from now or 1,000 years from now, again, she didn't see the exponential growing technology when she made this prediction. But she's like, imagine like Earth is in ruins, and like somebody comes here and looks at this, like what's it gonna look like? What's most important to us? It's gonna be fucking football stadiums and church. It'll be so obvious because there are biggest, hugest like structures, and it's just like we're doing that now. And so, I just have conversations with people about sports, and people who even agree, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. But then they spend all weekend watching sports. And so, I have mad friends who do this, and, we have very, very just, open conversations about it. And I'm honest, I just think it's ridiculous. It's we're putting all of this effort, all of these eyeballs on this stuff right now. And if you take, a third point of view, just look at it from the outside, it's what are we doing? Where is our effort going? And it's dang, I don't know. I'm disgusted by sports stadiums.
But the stadiums, but what about just, do you take issue with people enjoying recreation and enjoying themselves in any particular way they choose?
Wait, I'm sorry, say that again.
Well, just recreation in general, someone doing something simply because they enjoy it, not because anyone else enjoys it particularly, that's just what they like to do, and they get some sort of fulfillment from it. And if it's sports related, you still have a problem with that?
Well, I'm not by any means trying to set up a structure or some
it sounds like a lot of hate
and regulation against it. But here's what I'm trying. I guess I see it as hugely obsessive. Is our attitude towards it is hugely obsessive, way too.
Well, I guess
serious.
It's who's our attitude? Who's our?
What's that?
Like who are you referring to when you're saying like our attitude in general?
Sure. Well, I would say, like, obviously, like the major news networks, right? Like every major like TV station. But that shit filters through everybody. Like everybody's affected by that. Like everybody, kindergartners, first graders. Like if you go to some super intense like second grade basketball games, and those kids think it's like life or death, and like their biggest heroes are coming from the TV. It's like all of these people getting pumped up for this big numbers game, and it's just like if we put so much attention on it, so much money behind it, like that, like we will get kids putting their entire lives towards it. Like I didn't put my entire life towards it, I guess, but I was ridiculously obsessed with it, and
well, it's like
so for example, like wall covered with Michael Jordan was like my ideal, I thought it was like the best, most noble venture would to be Michael Jordan or Brett Favre or something, you know? And it's like, okay, like I made that decision for sure. But it's no wonder that so many kids see it that way. It's because our big, huge chunks of our society give it attention, give it worth, you know? And so that's where I say like because it's like it affects so many people, and like unless you like homeschool your kid and like keep them away from like culture, you know, like they're going to be affected by it too.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think that it just doesn't seem like it's so easy to, in all reality, to avoid those wavelengths in reality if you're not in that flow. Like you don't know, I don't know what the hell's happening in, you know, a lot of sports contexts, or, you know, in basketball or baseball, and I don't hear anything about it. I don't know anything about it.
Sure.
And so I just wonder, like, I don't see a lot of reason to think that competitive sports on a individualized, you know, basis, where people are just doing it because they want to do it. Because once again, so like you did all this stuff, and you said you chose you wanted to be Brett Favre, you know, or whatever, and you submitted yourself to the sports system. You made those decisions. You're responsible for those decisions, and now at a future date, your consciousness has, you know, gone in a different direction. No big surprise. It happens, you know, with lots of people in all kinds of different contexts. And now you look back on it, and they're like, wow, I could see how that was either, you know, everything you're talking about, whether it's preventing someone from putting resources in a better place, or maybe putting themselves in a better place. But at the same time, your understanding of yourself now doesn't happen without that experience, and everybody has a right to make fucked up, you know, decisions, or put themselves in a place voluntarily if they want to, and then learn from it. In other words, learning from experience. But I think that, I don't know, it seems like there's plenty of evidence to support people gaining tremendous benefit from competitive sports of all kinds.
Okay, so gosh, I don't like, maybe I'm just too over the top, or maybe like
Probably.
Because every time I talk, yeah, sure. Like every time I talk to people about this, they're like, "You don't think we should play sports? Like, you don't think we should be physical, like do physical things and things like this?" And it's like, no, like I totally see the benefits like from it, and I totally like. I'm not saying like nobody do sports and like only like read stuff and go online. Like we are physical beings, and we need to be active, and we like need to have exercise and like little competition. Like I'm not totally saying that that's bad and stuff like that. But like my like that ideal like vision for me would be like 3% of where towards culture is right now, as far as competitiveness and stuff like that. Like it literally. So like I guess. My thing is, the way I think about how it affects everybody is like the printed word. Like when the printed word came out, like that set, like a structure within society. It set like rules. Like that affected everybody. Like that infiltrates and gets in the mind space, and like that's going to affect you because it affects the people around you, and it sets something up. And like I would say that like same with religion. Like I like Neil Tyson. He talks about like, well, I don't like to have conversations about like whether God exists or not. And to me, like I see huge value in like Dawkins, for example, who says like, no, this does affect us because there are super smart people like all around the world that like are worth like they're worth trying to talk to, and they're worth like, because I don't know, it's just like tons of my super smart friends like spend all week doing this, right? Like seriously, like so like I'm thinking of like 8 of the top 10 smartest people that went to my high school, which is like a lot of smart people doing awesome things, spend so much time doing this stuff, tweeting about it, Facebooking about it, blah, blah, blah.
About what stuff? About what stuff?
About just competitive sports.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Sorry. And it's just, it blows my mind. It's like I lose them for the weekend, right? It's like, damn it! Like these people, like, and it's like, I'm not saying that like don't spend like some time doing it, but we are obsessed, and like we like, yeah.
What if, like, for those people, what if just that form of recreational unplugging from their constant whatever obsessiveness is in their head day to day throughout the week, and this is it's like golf or something. Like I think some people could approach it as this sounds really ridiculous, but like in a meditative sense where their mind just gets off track and then their subconscious gets to work. Unless you're talking though about people who are like obsessing about it every single day, right? Twitter and Facebook, versus like spending a fucking Saturday night drinking a lot, eating some wings or something, and or getting high and watching a game,
Totally, but it's like,
you're not anti-fun, sir, are you?
No, totally not. It's like,
I guess it's just like more about you, more specifically defining what the kind of what you're talking about, because it comes across as like real hating, but I know you're not. Like I know that's not your intent, but
like I feel very, very similar to like how I feel about religion and how I feel about sports, right? Like that's how I feel about it. I feel like it's way too wasteful. It's way too obsessive. It drives too many people's lives that like have way too much to offer to the world than to focus it on something like that.
Except that except religion's coercive, in a very substantial degree, whereas engaging in sports, is not coercive by definition. People are voluntarily doing it.
I would say it's totally. I would say it's totally coercive. I mean, if you
who's being forced to watch it? Who's being forced to play it? I mean,
I would say lots of kids, right? Like
by their parents.
So, and yes, totally. And
okay, now I think that's an interesting point, because that doesn't. Okay, you're totally right. That makes a lot of sense. I have seen that person. I've watched parents in Oklahoma hold their kids back a grade, even though they weren't going to fail the grade. They held them back a grade so they could be bigger on the football team.
Oh. Totally, right? I mean, one of my friends...
And that is bullshit. You're totally right. That's absolute bullshit.
One of my best friends, his dad one, like, basically brought him up to say football is the most important thing. You know, like, super, like, stereotypical, like, hard, like, football dad, you know, like, or just, like, crazy football dad type of person. As far as, like, just like stories he's told me, right? Like, his dad would tell him to, like, lead with the crown of his head when he went to, like, tackle people. And, like, that's what coaches do, like, all the time, right? Like, and as far as it being coercive and things like this, like, we are teaching our kids to throw our heads at each other. And, like that's good technique, right? I mean, like, that's football. Like, that's what a football coach would tell you. Like, I mean, especially previous to, like, 5-10 years ago, when it really started to become a scene, like all these concussions and things.
So yeah,
but it's like, what's a good way to throw your body at somebody else's? Like, there's no good way to do that.
Okay, but so, like, if you take that argument to, like, a higher level order and start applying it to everything else, then it seems like the commonality is really bad forms of consciousness trying to spread that bad form of consciousness. And it could be through, obviously, sports, but it can be through the way someone runs a business. It can be through the way someone interacts with other humans day to day. You know, it could be the way someone fucking drives their car. It could be the way, you know what I'm saying, like, where they're spreading whatever their bullshit is. So there could obviously be a way in which, in that context, that the arguments really apply to all forms of negative consciousness that's trying to influence other people to, like you said, well, we need to put the helmet, you know, right here and spare. Even though, you know, it's considered unethical in the game, we still need to do this. And, or we're gonna, whatever the other bullshit is. I mean, as far as trying to work something out. I don't know. I mean, does that make sense or not?
Yeah.
And because that's what I see. Like, I see it on the bigger scale, that just kind of cunty attitude from people where they just can't accept people wanting to do something different. They can't accept people wanting to live their own life the way they want to live it, and they can't accept that maybe they don't have the right or authority to fuck things up anymore, you know what I mean, or spread all that negative energy and all that negative consciousness. And rarely does anyone ever, you know, stand up to it and just say no.
In the same way that, like, an atheist would be perceived in, like, South Dakota, or, like, very conservative religious place, like, in the same way that an atheist would be perceived as somebody trying to, like, fuck stuff up, you know? Like, that's how I was perceived when I, like, quit football, and especially now, like, about these ideas. It's like, whoa, like, you don't think we should be so, like, obsessed with this, like, blah, blah, blah. It's like, I am trying to, like, totally, like, tear apart their entire society and tell them that, like, you know, like, all, like, I don't know, like, it's totally out there.
Well, I mean, I totally see what you're saying, because that's the way I see the state, and I see religion the same way. To me, almost in every shape and form, any kind of criticisms towards religion, you can just replace it with government, and it almost falls in line. Boom, 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 boom. Because they're just control systems, and you know, and so in a certain context, we were talking about sports, because it is crazy. Now that we're talking about this, like, major league sports, like NFL, Major League Baseball, and NBA, there might be some technical differentiation, but I think most of them have special exemptions from the federal government for to essentially break all these antitrust laws legally. And so now they get exemptions that a regular business could never get. But they all are a
NFL
business.
is a non-profit, I know for sure.
Oh, they're actually a non-profit?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so that's even crazier. I mean, that's even crazier. That is crazy. I've never heard that in my life. I guess, well, National Football League, NFL,
and to me, it's like, if you're the government, why wouldn't you let them be nonprofit? Like, if you are trying to control people, like, to me, the NFL, like, those models are perfect ways for people to get prideful and, like, go to war against other people, and just, like, it just promotes machine-like thinking, in that, like, here's our team, we're playing the other state today, and I'm going to root, like, for a prideful, you know, like, whatever team, and it's just like it promotes us versus them, and, like, all of that stuff. That's, like, if you're trying to keep structure, like, it's a good look.
Well, and what's funny is that, historically speaking, most people have considered the use of something like sports to be, and even politics to a certain extent, to be a replacement for the fields of war. So what's funny is that, you know, in that view, sports and politics were a definite enormous upgrade from two neighborhoods going to a fucking war and killing each other to just having this intense soccer match, you know, on the pitch. And so that's an upgrade. And so it's funny because now here you're kind of looking like, well, maybe there's even a better upgrade to be had. And I'm kind of saying that with government and religion for sure. And
Totally.
And so really it's just it's offering a different way of perceiving. And I don't know, I just like to look at things more in the positive sense of, we always point out the negative for sure, and there's nothing wrong with it, especially if it's truth, or as much truth as it can be. But in the end, having some sort of optimism about something beyond that, you know, like, okay, so the ending of the state's not something to be scared of. The ending of religion is not something to be scared of. Like, it's something that's going to lead to something really positive in a individualized freedom sense or liberty sense, and more peace for humanity. I think those are great trends, for sure. Because I don't think domination can breed peace. You know, war doesn't make peace. It's like the dumbest, right. It's just ridiculous to think that. And so that's where we're at. I mean, man, kind of lost my train of thought for a second. There's a lot of stuff to consider with all this. And on the religion tip, man, it's scary. It's scary how much stuff's changed. But and so that was coming back to where you were with saying that it needs to upgrade. Oh, I was going to ask you this question. That's what it was. What it sounds like to me that seems really hilarious. I'm wondering if this is true. For the time, was there a time period between, you know, the ending of sporting and the newfound idea where any type of psychedelic came in to the picture or experience?
Oh yeah, most certainly.
I mean, do you think that had anything to do with the altering of the way you perceived it?
Well, it's interesting. So, like, my brother Matt, who like coached me through, like, when I was from like a kid to the time I was like a senior in high school. Like, he always coached my teams and stuff. He was the one who got me to, like, think about quitting, because he's like, hey, if you, like, turn in your jersey, you know, like, I wouldn't think any differently of you. This is kind of like right in the beginning of the season that I quit. Just kind of starting to have these conversations with him. So, like, coming from him, it was like, whoa, like, that's crazy. But it's interesting because he was like, he's not super, like, pro marijuana and stuff like that. But he's like, you know, like, I'm okay with you quitting, but, like, I just wonder if, you know, like, smoking marijuana made you, like, change tweet. And as if it was, like, a bad thing, right? And it's like no, no, it's like, it's most certainly changed me, you know? Like, marijuana, psychedelics, things like that, like, totally opening up my mind. And there is no, like, one specific time, but just, like, the dissolving of structures, the dissolving of ego and stuff like that. definitely, for sure, helped me like go against what kind of everybody was about that I was surrounded by, which is like, besides my brother Matt, like nobody told me like, yeah, you should do that. Like even people I talked to, like nobody was like, yeah, you should do that, because most everybody I was around was really into sports. So like I guess I really had to take like I had to drop my ego as much as I possibly could to, you know what, like fuck everything, like fuck all the stuff that like I was building up in my head, like about what was important and like what people would think about me and stuff. That definitely helped me kind of break away, I guess.
Well, that's enormous, from your perspective, and maybe that's where it's more powerful to consider, what you really came from, and comparing to where you are now. So like you came from something like super fucking intense, like friends and family. I mean, you said it's your brother was your coach?
Yeah.
And like that's so intimate and personal, and yeah, you went to university on sports scholarship too, did you say? Right?
Yeah.
And so to get out of that kind of paradigm, that's no different than someone leaving the religion they were raised with. Or someone leaving the political party they were raised to be in. It's just this enormous, just shredding of your reality and going, oh, wow, I've done that for how many fucking years? And wow, that's so crazy. Like it's almost insane that it ever happened. Like, do you then look at yourself as being almost like Thomas O'Brien version 2.0 now?
Yeah, well, just just really like I always try, like I'm just constantly trying to shed, like who I was yesterday, trying to like reinvent myself. Like one quote from like a recent Jason Silva video that is so huge to me is like trying to see a divergence from the ordinary in every single instance. And because like we're all on this train, right? Like we got up this morning, like we knew we were going to do this podcast, and that's what we're doing now. Like most of us like don't wake up in the morning and like, oh, like I'm going to go to the Philippines today, just like making decisions like spontaneously. Like we're all on this train to some degree, but it's like trying to like look at the windows and like just like get out of the train as much as possible. It's just like really interesting and something that I'm working on like just all the time. But
do you ever talk? I mean, like, so you'll credit. Do you credit marijuana use as being something that initially helped make you kind of start considering some of this stuff, or like how do you look at, or do you look at it in any kind of context like that?
Like just overall, marijuana has like helped me be more creative, helped me like it's just helped me enormously, like in general. Just like coffee, just like exercise, just like good conversation, just like overall, incrementally, like helps me think, helps me whatever. So yeah, I mean, like it's huge. It's like very much like in line with, I don't know, like all the pot smoking people. Like I don't know, like Sagan is like a big inspiration as far as like his view on it and like other people. But no, yeah, like I'm a huge proponent.
Well, it's like Bob Marley said, when you smoke the herb, it reveals you to yourself, and it's kind of fascinating how true that can be. Whereas McKenna talks about how all the accepted drug use in modern Western dominator society are things that help you cope or get through all the bullshit you're kind of being led into or forced into. And so that's caffeine, helps you get up in the morning, helps you get going, helps you get through the day. You ever get a cup of coffee and help get through the fucking day because it's miserable and you hate it. And you don't want to be there, get some coffee and go through it. Or you have anxiety and you're depressed that you're working in that particular job or this particular situation in your life, And instead of focusing on a solution to why, that those feelings and that experience is happening, you go take some more medicine, Xanax or Zoloft, to help get through your depressing, horrible existence day to day. And then you go home, and because you're depressed and your fucking work sucks so bad, you go drink and throw some nicotine in too, which can be kind of healthy actually. But go get drunk, wake up the next morning, get coffee, sober up, go back in. And it's like this cycle. But the one thing like psychedelics or cannabis use, if a worker that hates their job and hates their life, but they've never actually confronted it consciously, and they went home on a Wednesday night, tonight someone goes home, they find 5 grams of mushrooms, it's over with. It's over with. They will no longer be able to ignore what's obvious and in their life. They're just going to be slammed with it, whether they like it or not. And so that's why I always like McKenna's approach to psychedelics, was that he went all over the world trying all these religious traditions and all these yogis and this spiritualist, and trying to find something that worked or something that had real deep experiential meaning or consciousness changing. And he went from basically what he considered fraud to fraud to fraud until he goes down to Peru and meets up with shamans and starts eating mushrooms and drinking ayahuasca, and case closed. It's like someone can tell you about having a religious experience, like they were praying or they were meditating and they did this, but the likely, in just assuming it's true, so let's just assume they had a really true visionary experience, the likelihood of that being recreated with you or anyone else is basically zero. And in that case, it becomes meaningless. But when it comes to psychedelic, 30 minutes and 5 grams and you're off to the races. You've been to the universe and back. You've seen yourself. And once again, whether you like it or not, it happens. It's truly visionary, and unlike the quote-unquote religious experiences, which are actually very eerily similar to a lot of psychedelic experiences. And that's the theory that the DMT endogenous in your brain could somehow, for some people, just get blasted occasionally, and then they have crazy, out-of-this-world visions. Maybe.
Yeah, on that, as far as people, coming to those realizations of, alright, I'm gonna quit my job, or alright, I'm gonna, get out of this relationship, or whatever it is that they've just been coming up with, rationalizations for. I've been reading 4-Hour Workweek. Have you ever read that?
Oh, dude, yeah, I read that pretty much when it first came out, and
Right.
and I'm a huge Ferris fan, I loved him, and yeah, it's an awesome book, and it totally helped revolutionize and change the way I looked at things. Absolutely. So, you just picked it up. That's awesome. What do you think so far?
Yeah, and in there, I tweeted a quote from the book where he said, pure hell forces action, but anything less can be dealt with just clever rationalization. And so, for me, when I quit football, it was just obvious because of how I felt, but it took a while because I had these thoughts for a year or so, maybe I want to be doing something other than football or whatever, but I was hating it, the season was going shitty, my coaches found out that I smoked marijuana, and I was gonna have to apologize to the team, and
when was this? When was that?
Yeah, well, actually, and this was crazy, so the coach found out that I smoked marijuana, and he's like, so you're gonna have to apologize to the team, and I'm like,
what?
What's that?
I just I'm rhetorically asking, for what? It's so ridiculous.
Oh, right. Yeah, so tell the team, one, that you apologize, and two, that you won't do it again. And so I was just like, okay, well, there's just no way, right? And so it's like pure hell forced me to be like, I'm done with it. But like it took so much for me to get there. But I think, like you're saying, like marijuana and psychedelics can help you like see that earlier, and like see what's in front, hit already,
Yeah.
But yeah, because this is like, when you get hit in the face with all of that stuff, it's very much like you get hit in the face with like a trip or like a high. You're like, oh, you just get hit with yourself. You get hit with these things. Or like you look and there's like something in the room that's been sitting there that you just weren't looking at before,
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And that's Tim Ferriss, I think, I'm not sure where hearing him say this, or maybe it's in 4 Hour Body, but just advocating the idea of a yearly ego reset. At least, once a year, go on some sort of psychedelic trip to reset the ego. And just how important that is. But you see a lot of people who have figured something like that out. And, I'm a huge fan, of Bill Hicks and his stand-up. Have you ever listened to Bill Hicks?
Mm-hmm.
I think you totally get down with a lot of what he said, because he's one of the most philosophical stand-up comedians around. I mean, that's ever existed. And he's passed away now, but and he's originally from Texas too, so it's kind of cool. But he integrates psychedelics into his act, and psychedelics specifically really were an important part of who he was and how he evolved through life, philosophically speaking. But it's also in a stand-up, and it's so good, and it's so hilarious, but it's also mind-changing. So, it's a really good way to introduce people even to a lot of these ideas, because he was talking about, he has a whole bit about McKenna's stoned ape theory, of the 3 hominids eating mushrooms, and there you go. And so it's just really hilarious, but he does it so well, so perfectly, and his stand-up's basically 20 years old, but everything he's saying then, it's almost like a prophet. It's like McKenna. You listen to something from 1985, and it still holds up for the most part today. And that's hard with technology change. But so someone like Bill Hicks, I really do think if there's a way to call someone a prophet, that in a sense he was. Because of this message he was bringing decades ahead of its time. That's just now starting to take hold and keep going. And that's the shirt. That's my higher primate shirt. I don't know if you see it, but it's the chimp with the DMT molecule, and he's eating mushrooms, and he's become a higher primate. And so why not? I mean, why not? Why not? I don't know. Why not? But it's just been so disregarded. So I think that'll start with McKenna's talking about caffeine and alcohol and how it just makes people more submissive to their situation in a certain way, but it never makes them question their existence.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. That is crazy, man. Dude, well, who knows what's going to happen? And I think that's the point of Singularity and chaos theory in general, is if there's any chance that you may not be 100% perfect and accurate in your prediction of the future, then that means one little thing that you're wrong about could be enough to alter it in a way that you could never, in any sense of the imagination, have been able to predict where it goes. And so that's why what we're living in right now is so fucking crazy, and that's the ride, man. We're on our ride, enjoy it, be nice to people, encourage people to do awesome things and be positive and live a peaceful life. I mean, if we can just all start with some really basic things that I think we all know are true, it's just that a lot of people don't want to take responsibility for it. So they either they let their religion be an excuse for their shittiness, you know, because they can just get forgiven, as opposed to just taking responsibility and saying, no, I'm a shitty person. I need to stop being like this and just be nice to somebody once. Like, be nice. You're checking out at the grocery store. Be nice to the person that you're checking out with. You know what I mean? Like, oh, someone accidentally bumps into you. Who cares if it's their fault? Just be nice. Don't respond emotionally. You know, don't get into the fight or flight, you know, chimpanzee response. So, I don't know. I think that's the deal. I think there's positivity. So I appreciate you talking back with us to continue this conversation. I think I've got all the recording down. I've got like 3 backups this time to make sure it all works out, and we'll put this out, man. So I think last time, like, at Twitter, what's the Twitter again?
Thomas Beta. Thomas B-E-T-A.
And that's Thomas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so hook up with Thomas on Twitter. I know that you're super engaging with everybody. It looks like every time I've ever looked at your timeline, it looks like you're going back and forth with a ton of different people. I don't know. It seems like a lot of people, right?
Yeah, no, that's, I'm all about, like, the conversation. I think that's why Twitter is really so awesome, is because unlike print media or, like, radio, instead of, like, a one-way conversation, it's like, it is a... So that's what I like to use Twitter for, is for sure sharing content and good stuff. It's great for that, but no, yeah, I love just getting in and having discourse, for sure.
That's awesome, man. Well, hook it up. Find Thomas on Twitter and holler at him. If there's anything that you found interesting in our conversations, I know he wants to talk more about it, whether it's futurism, got tech ideas, you got collaboration ideas, roll tree, you know, all these things, medium, a lot of things happening. I know Thomas on the front end of a lot of it, so hook up with him. I think you have a good time. Hit that follow. Thanks for being here. This is part 2 of that Mind Novelty Podcast that we started and lost so much of. So the universe is thankful, so appreciate you for coming on, man.
Thanks so much for having me, dude.
Yeah, I'm gonna end this. Peace, man.